Silver and gold investors apparently want to know, is the US dollar dying? I get that question on a regular basis. So I will share with you my insights into what is going on right now with the US dollar and how that will impact the price of silver, the price of gold as we head into the coming years. Thanks for joining me here in the basement. While I have your attention, I want to tell you one thing that I know for sure. You're a smart person. The people that watch my videos, that comment on the videos, are of a little higher intellectual horsepower, let's say. We like to dive in deep. We're not afraid to take on the tough subjects, like, is the US dollar dying? Is the US dollar in trouble? It can be difficult. We need to stick together. I want you to know you're always welcome here in the basement. You're special, you're unique, there's only one you, and you have insights that nobody else has. So don't be afraid to dive in and leave a comment in the comment section below. But let's get to this video. Is the dollar in big trouble? And what does that mean for the silver price and the gold price? Have you noticed they're hitting us with yet another new word, a new economic term that I'd never heard of until maybe the last 5 or 6 weeks? De-dollarization. It's even in the headlines, right? CNN, Fox, all the major news outlets have done stories about de-dollarization. It's beginning to be recognized. In a nutshell, guys, yes, it's very, very likely that the dollar will lose value, will lose stature, will lose power in the world. Almost everybody sees it now. Goldman Sachs, you name it. Everyone is pointing out that the dollar is very much likely going to devalue. Now, in the long run, that will be very, very good for real assets priced in dollar terms. Things like silver, things like gold, things like land. But what is causing this move away from the US dollar, and what evidence do we have? Thank you, yes, you, right now, for joining me here in the basement. I recognize you as being important. You are the most important part of Ron's basement. I value your time. I hope you decide to come back again in the future. You can subscribe, it's free. Now let's get back to the video. We needn't look any further than the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. But there's a host of other countries aligning themselves with the BRICS, applying to join the BRICS. Big countries that had traditionally been allies of the United States. Mexico, Saudi Arabia. We're hearing about more and more countries, Iran, all working together in conjunction with the BRICS to move away from the US dollar. And that's big trouble for the United States because the dollar has ruled the roost now for several decades. A majority of the world's trade had been settled in dollars. Almost all the world's oil. And guys, if you don't know this already, it's important to understand that oil has been and still is today the blood of the world economy. It's the most highly traded commodity in the world. So moving oil off the dollar is a big deal because you know why? All those dollars that countries would get by selling their oil or selling whatever else they were selling in international trade, a lot of those dollars came back to the United States in the form of buying U.S. treasuries, which allowed our government to run huge deficits, allowed America essentially to live beyond its means for the last several decades. So when that changes, it will be a cataclysmic change for the world economy and for especially the United States economy. First Mining Gold is a development company advancing 2 of the largest gold projects in Canada. Springpole in Ontario and Duparquet, located in Quebec, each already has 5 million ounces of gold reserves, but exploration initiatives are underway at both projects to find even more gold. First Mining is well-financed, has zero debt, and owns an interest in 4 additional Canadian gold development projects. Over a medium or long period of time, this can only mean one thing for the price of silver and the price of gold. Higher, 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 as measured in US dollars. Paper US dollars, imaginary electronic US dollars, because all of this is extremely inflationary, which means the value of the US dollar will continue what it's done for the last, 80, 90 years? It will continue at probably an even faster rate to potentially go down, down, down in value. But why? Why is this happening? Why are countries turning their back on the good old USA and the US dollar? There's a number of reasons. What if you had a neighbor that kept borrowing money from you, time after time after time, ensured they'd pay you back a little bit here and there, but they racked up a huge amount of debt? At some point, you're probably going to say, enough is enough. I'm not giving you any more money. And that's one of the main reasons why countries around the world are saying no more to the United States and the US dollar. We have racked up in the United States well over $30 trillion in national debt. And when you add on top of that other future obligations, the number becomes even more exorbitant. Countries are concerned about giving us more of their money because they're concerned about our ability to pay it back at some point in the future, or pay it back with something that's worth anything. Because the United States has printed imaginary, electronic, whatever you want to call it, money at a pace that has not been seen in history. Another huge reason why countries are wanting to get away from the dollar is because over the last several decades, because of the dollar's hegemony status, right? The sole player in the game, that gave the United States a big privilege, a lot of power. And with that power came things like sanctions, confiscations. Countries are not wanting to be dictated to from the United States. And one way they can achieve that goal is by getting away from US dollars. Does it feel like to you that not a day goes by that we hear a story about these BRICS nations or one of their new friends forging some new alliance? We have China and Brazil saying they're going to move off the US dollar for all their trade. China and Russia working together. China even brokered an agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia, countries that have been sworn enemies for decades. Everywhere we look, every time we turn around, we're hearing more and more stories about these countries working together, and it's almost always with a goal of moving away from the US dollar, moving away from the umbrella of US power. Look, I don't necessarily like it. I live here in the United States, but we need to look at what is going on. We got to pull our head out of the sand and look at the big picture. And what does this mean for the gold price and the silver price as we move into the coming years, even decade? I think it can only mean one thing. Real assets will continue to shine. There will be major changes in the U.S. economy. We'll likely see more manufacturing back here in the United States, a move back to real value, manufacturing things, offering goods to the world as opposed to just paper dollars. But in the interim, I think we'll be very safe holding precious metals. For me, I hold some silver and I hold some gold mining stocks. We'll see how it all plays out. It's going to be interesting. I'll be here for you through it all. See you next time.